I'm dangerous, he warned. I'm already yours, she whispered. Shadows of Meridian. The floating city of Meridian hung like a jeweled pendant against the twilight sky, its crystalline spires catching the last crimson rays of the setting sun. Darian Thorne leaned against the railing of his apartment balcony, the wind tousling his dark hair as he gazed out at the city he'd sworn to protect and the city that had nearly broken him. Security alert in. Diplomatic Sector 3, announced the AI embedded in his wrist communicator. Potential breach involving non-human delegates. Darian closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. After the Vega incident, he'd promised himself no more field work, no more blood on his hands. But in Meridian, promises were as fragile as the peace between species. Acknowledged, he responded, already reaching for the pulse pistol hidden beneath his civilian clothes. Send details to my ocular feed. The diplomatic quarter was in chaos when he arrived. Security drones buzzed through the air, their sensors scanning frantically for threats. Diplomatic staff hurried through the halls, their faces tight with worry. Thorne! Commander Reeves approached, her uniform immaculate despite the tension etched on her face. I didn't call for you. You didn't have to. Darian's gaze swept the corridor, noting every exit, every potential ambush point. Old habits. What happened? The Lyrian ambassador received a death threat, specific, detailed. Reeves lowered her voice. If anything happens to Ambassador Nix, the peace treaty dissolves. Darian's jaw tightened. The treaty was all that stood between humanity and another devastating war. Where is she now? Secure room 7. She's difficult. A ghost of a smile touched Darian's lips. Aren't they all? The secure room's doors parted with a soft hiss. Inside, pacing like a caged predator, was Ambassador Lyra Nix. Her skin was a soft shade of purple that seemed to shimmer under the harsh lighting, contrasting with the silver-white hair that fell in waves down her back. Her eyes, large and luminous, narrowed at his entrance. Another guard? Her voice held the musical lilt characteristic of Lyrians, but edged with steel. I've told your commander I don't need protection. I'm not a guard, Darian replied, keeping his distance. Think of me as a particularly lethal tour guide. Lyra's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How reassuring. The threat against you was credible enough to trigger a level 4 security protocol. Until we identify the source, you're stuck with me. Darian crossed his arms. Unless you know something about this threat that might help us resolve it faster. Lyra turned to the window, her reflection ghostly against the darkening sky. My people have many enemies, Mr. Thorne. Darian Thorne. Many enemies, Mr. Thorne, including within your own government. She turned back to him, her gaze unflinching. The peace treaty I'm here to negotiate benefits both our worlds, but there are those who profit from conflict. Darian's communicator chirped. A message from Reeves. Found explosive compound traces in Ambassador's quarters. Professional job. We need to move, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper as he approached Lyra. Your quarters have been compromised. For the first time, fear flickered across her features. Where will we go? Somewhere off the grid. Darian reached for her hand without thinking. Her skin was surprisingly warm against his, her fingers instinctively curling around his. Do you trust me? Lyra's eyes met his, searching. I don't know you. I'm dangerous, he warned softly. A smile, genuine this time, touched her lips. Perhaps that's exactly what I need right now. As they slipped through the service corridors of Meridian, alarms began to wail behind them. Darian felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, but something else too. A strange protectiveness toward the alien diplomat whose hand still rested in his. He'd vowed never to let anyone close again, not after what happened on Vega. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Whispers in the dark. The safe house was nestled in Meridian's forgotten underbelly, where the gleaming promise of the floating city gave way to shadows and secrets. Darian unlocked the door with a quick retinal scan, ushering Lyra inside before securing the entrance behind them. No one knows about this place, he explained, activating the apartment systems with a gesture. Soft amber lights illuminated sparse but functional furnishings. Not even Commander Reeves. Lyra moved through the space with natural grace, her fingers trailing along the edge of a wooden table. Real wood, a rarity in Meridian. You've prepared for disappearing. It wasn't a question. Darian watched her, noting how the light played across her purple skin. highlighting delicate lavender undertones. In my line of work, exit strategies keep you alive. He moved to the kitchen unit, retrieving a bottle of amber liquid. Drink? Is it customary to offer alcohol to someone you're protecting? Despite her words, Lyra accepted the glass he offered, their fingers brushing momentarily. Nothing about this situation is customary, Ambassador. Darian took a long sip, welcoming the burn. Standard protocol would have you in a diplomatic bunker surrounded by 20 guards, not hiding in an ex-operative's bolt hole. Lyra settled onto the couch, her posture still regal despite their surroundings. And why aren't we following standard protocol, Mr. Thorne? Because whoever wants you dead has access to security clearances. Darian leaned against the wall, keeping a clear view of both Lyra and the entry points. The explosive residue found in your quarters was military grade. Limited access. You suspect your own people? Her luminous eyes studied him over the rim of her glass. I suspect everyone. Darian's voice was flat. It's kept me alive this long. A silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions. Finally, Lyra set down her glass. The Vega incident. That's where I know your name from. Darian's expression hardened. You've done your research. I make it a point to know about those assigned to protect me. She tilted her head slightly. 12 civilians dead. You were blamed, then quietly exonerated. Not quietly enough, apparently. He turned away, moving to check the security feeds. Lyra followed, standing close enough that he could sense her warmth. You were a scapegoat. I was responsible for my team. His voice was barely audible. Their blood is on my hands regardless of who gave the order. Her fingers touched his arm, light as a feather. We all carry ghosts, Darian. The use of his first name made him turn. Their faces were inches apart, her eyes searching his with unexpected compassion. For a moment, something electric passed between them, a recognition of shared burdens. The moment shattered as Darian's communicator vibrated. A text-only message from a trusted source. Diplomatic leak. Treaty details compromised. Watch for internal strike. We have a problem. He showed her the message. Someone's leaked details of the treaty. If they control the narrative, they can make it appear that my people are demanding too much, Lyra finished, her expression grim. Create public outrage. Derail the peace process. And justify your elimination as a necessary action. Darian ran a hand through his hair. We need to identify the source. Lyra's eyes narrowed in thought. I may have a way, but it requires accessing the diplomatic mainframe, which means returning to the most dangerous place for you right now. A smile curved her lips. I thought danger was your specialty, Mr. Thorne. Despite himself, Darian felt an answering smile. You're either incredibly brave or reckless, Ambassador. My people don't distinguish between the two. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. And I think perhaps neither do you. As night settled over Meridian, they formulated their plan. Lyra revealed knowledge of diplomatic security that surprised even Darian, while he outlined infiltration tactics that made her raise an eyebrow. You're not what I expected, she admitted as they pored over building schematics. Neither are you, he replied, finding himself increasingly drawn to her intelligence and courage. When exhaustion finally caught up with them, Darian insisted she take the bedroom while he kept watch, but as he settled onto the couch, pistol within easy reach, Lyra paused at the bedroom door. The treaty would bring our worlds closer, she said softly. Create opportunities for humans and Lyrians to understand each other. Perhaps even what? Darian prompted when she trailed off. Her eyes met his, holding something vulnerable and hopeful. To find connections we never imagined possible. After she disappeared into the bedroom, Darian remained awake, troubled by how quickly his resolve to remain detached was crumbling. In the shadows of his safe house, he found himself drawn to the alien diplomat in ways he hadn't felt for anyone in years, and it terrified him more than any threat they faced. Beautiful surrender dawn brought no respite from the tension coiled between them. Darian awoke to find Lyra already dressed, staring out the window at Meridian's skyline bathed in morning light. I contacted a trusted colleague, she said without turning. The treaty has indeed been altered to make Lyrian demands appear unreasonable. Darian moved to stand beside her, close enough to sense the subtle floral scent that seemed to emanate from her skin. How bad? Bad enough to sway public opinion against us. Her voice remained steady, but he noticed the slight tremor in her hands. My people are being portrayed as warmongers using peace negotiations as a cover for military advantage. Darian's jaw tightened. Classic disinformation. Create a narrative that justifies preventative action. We need to access the original documents, prove the alterations. Lyra finally turned to face him, determination hardening her delicate features. Tonight, during the diplomatic reception? That's insane, Darian countered. Every security operative in Meridian will be there, including whoever wants you dead. Precisely. A smile played at her lips. They won't expect me to walk into their trap. Because it's suicide, he growled, stepping closer. Not with you at my side. Her hand rested against his chest, the touch igniting something primal within him. Unless you're afraid, Mr. Thorne. Their eyes locked in silent challenge. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension, something far more complex than their mission. We do this my way, he finally conceded. No unnecessary risks. Hours later, they entered the grand reception hall together. Lyra was resplendent in a flowing silver gown that complemented her purple skin, drawing admiring glances from humans and non-humans alike. Darian remained at her side in formal attire that concealed multiple weapons, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Ambassador Nix, greeted Commissioner Hayes, his smile not reaching his eyes. We were concerned by your absence yesterday. A minor security concern, Lyra replied smoothly. Fortunately, Mr. Thorne was most attentive to my needs. Darian caught the double meaning in her words, felt heat rise to his face as her hand rested possessively on his arm. They navigated the reception with practiced ease, maintaining their cover while slowly working their way toward the secure archives. When an alarm sounded on the far side of the complex, a diversion arranged through Lyra's contact, they seized their opportunity. The archive chamber was dimly lit, humming with the quiet operation of data servers. As Lyra accessed the mainframe with credentials she shouldn't have had, Darian kept watch at the door, tension coiling in his muscles. I have it, she whispered triumphantly minutes later. Proof of the alterations and... Her voice faltered. What is it? Darian moved to her side. The authorization code. It's from Commander Reeves. The revelation hung between them for a heartbeat before the door to the archive hissed open. Darian pushed Lyra behind him, weapon drawn in one fluid motion. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out, said Reeves, stepping into the chamber with two armed guards. I'm almost impressed. Why? Darian demanded, keeping his gun trained on his former superior. Why sabotage the peace treaty? Peace is stagnation, Thorne. The military thrives on conflict. Reeves's smile was cold. The Lyrians have technology we need. War is the fastest way to acquire it. You're insane, Lyra said from behind Darian. Millions would die. Acceptable losses for humanity's advancement. Reeves signaled her guards. Take them. What followed was a blur of violence. Darian moved with lethal precision, years of training culminating in a dance of death. When it ended, Reeves and her guards lay unconscious and he stood breathing heavily, a cut across his cheek dripping blood. Lyra approached cautiously, her eyes wide as she assessed his injuries. You're hurt. I've had worse, he managed, the adrenaline beginning to fade. They fled the reception through service corridors, the data containing proof of the conspiracy secured. Back at the safe house, as Lyra tended to his wounds with gentle fingers, something between them shifted irrevocably. You could have been killed, she whispered, her face inches from his as she cleaned the cut on his cheek. Worth the risk, he replied, his voice husky with emotion he'd kept buried for years. Her hand stilled against his face. Why? Darian looked into her eyes, finally surrendering to what he'd been fighting since the moment they met. Because you've reminded me there are still things worth fighting for. Her lips parted in surprise, and then she was leaning forward, closing the distance between them. Their kiss was tentative at first, then hungry with need long denied. Her skin felt like silk beneath his fingers as he pulled her closer, all barriers between human and alien, dissolving in the heat of their embrace. I should warn you, he murmured against her lips. I'm dangerous. Lyra smiled, her fingers threading through his hair as she whispered, I'm already yours. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting golden stripes across Lyra's purple skin as she slept beside Darian. He watched the gentle rise and fall of her breath, marveling at how quickly she had dismantled the walls he'd built around himself after Vega. The evidence they'd stolen from the archives had been transmitted to both human and Lyrian authorities. Commander Reeves was in custody, but Darian harbored no illusions that she was acting alone. Conspiracy ran deep in Meridian's power structures. His communicator vibrated. An encrypted message from an old contact within intelligence. Archives accessed. Secure Channel 9. Careful not to wake Lyra, Darian slipped from the bed and moved to his secure terminal. Channel 9 was reserved for the most sensitive intelligence, the kind that could get operatives killed. The file that appeared made his blood run cold. Operation Sundown. Intelligence assessment of Lyrian diplomatic corps. His eyes scanned the document, each word driving a spike of ice deeper into his heart. There, in classified intelligence reports dating back 3 years, was Ambassador Lyra Nix's name. Not as a diplomat, but as the head of Lyrian intelligence operations in human space. A spy. Images followed. Lyra meeting with known information brokers, accessing restricted areas, transmitting data to her homeworld. The evidence was circumstantial but damning. Darian, her voice still husky with sleep, came from the bedroom doorway. He closed the file, but not quickly enough. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she approached, pulling his discarded shirt around her slender frame. "What is it?" she asked, reaching for the terminal. Darian stepped back, creating distance between them. The warmth of the previous night vanished, replaced by the cold professionalism that had kept him alive for years. "You never mentioned your intelligence background," he said, watching her reaction carefully. Her expression flickered, surprise, then caution. "You never asked about my past. Most diplomats haven't been trained in espionage." Lyra's posture shifted subtly, defensive. "And most security escorts haven't killed 17 people with their bare hands. We all have histories we'd rather not discuss." "This isn't about my past," Darian countered. "It's about your present. The treaty negotiations, your convenient targeting. Was it all elaborately staged to gain sympathy?" "Access?" Hurt flashed across her features, quickly replaced by anger. "You can't possibly believe that. What I believe doesn't matter." "The evidence?" "What evidence?" she demanded, stepping forward. "Show me." He hesitated, then opened the file again. Lyra's face remained impassive as she reviewed the documents, but he noticed the slight tremor in her hands. "Yes," she finally said, her voice quiet. "I was Lyrian intelligence, before the peace initiative." Her eyes met his, challenging. "Many diplomats begin in intelligence. It's a natural progression. And the meetings? The data transmissions? Part of my role as cultural liaison." Her voice hardened. "Everything I've done has been to further peace between our people. Everything." Darian wanted to believe her, needed to believe her after what they'd shared. But years of betrayal had taught him caution. "Reeves wasn't working alone," he said. "If her co-conspirators learn what we know, they'll come for both of us," Lyra finished. "So we're still on the same side, regardless of what you think of me now." The distance between them, mere feet of physical space, felt like an unbridgeable chasm. The intimacy they'd shared just hours ago seemed to belong to different people in a different life. "I need time," Darian finally said, "to verify your story." Something flickered in Lyra's eyes. Disappointment, resignation. "And until then?" "Until then, we focus on staying alive and exposing the conspiracy." He turned away, unable to bear the hurt in her gaze. Nothing has changed. But everything had changed, and they both knew it. The next 12 hours passed in tense silence. Darian reached out to trusted contacts, seeking verification of Lyra's claims, while she analyzed the stolen data for clues to Reeves's co-conspirators. They moved like strangers sharing the same space, careful not to touch, to reconnect. The loss of their brief connection ached like a physical wound, but Darian couldn't afford to trust blindly. Not again. When his communicator chimed with an alert from the safe house's perimeter sensors, it was almost a relief. "Security drones," he said, checking the feeds. "Military grade. At least a dozen." Lyra moved to his side, professional once more. "Reeves's people?" "Likely." Darian began gathering weapons. "We need to move. There's a passage beneath the building." The explosion rocked the safe house before he could finish, sending them both sprawling. Smoke filled the apartment as emergency systems wailed. Darian reached for Lyra instinctively, pulling her to her feet. "Are you hurt?" "No," she coughed, clutching his arm. "The passage?" "This way." He led her to a concealed panel, fingers working quickly to reveal the hidden exit. As they descended into the darkness, the sound of boots above signaled their pursuer's arrival. Darian sealed the passage behind them, buying precious minutes. The maintenance tunnels beneath Meridian were a maze of pipes and conduits, dimly lit and echoing with the city's mechanical pulse. They moved swiftly, Darian leading them through memorized routes while checking for pursuit. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked, her voice low. "The one person in Meridian who might still help us." Darian paused at a junction, checking their location. "An old friend who owes me. You trust this person?" The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken tension. Darian's eyes met hers in the dim light. "With my life," he replied. "And yours." Something softened in Lyra's expression. Gratitude, perhaps, or hope that the rift between them might still be mended. They continued in silence, the weight of unsaid words heavier than the city suspended above them. Beyond the stars, the safe house belonging to Kira Chen was buried deep in Meridian's commercial district, hidden within a labyrinth of storage facilities and automated manufacturing plants. Darian hadn't seen his former colleague in nearly 2 years, not since she'd left government service to pursue alternative career opportunities, a euphemism for the high-end information brokerage she now operated. "You look terrible," was her greeting as they entered her secure facility. Kira's cybernetic eye whirred softly as it scanned them both. "And you've brought a Lyrian. Interesting company you're keeping these days, Thorne." "We need your help," Darian replied, too exhausted for pleasantries. "And your discretion." Kira's gaze shifted to Lyra, assessing. "Ambassador Nix, your disappearance has caused quite the diplomatic incident. Some say you've been abducted, others suggest you've defected." "Neither is true," Lyra replied evenly. "We've uncovered a conspiracy to sabotage the peace treaty." "Reeves," Darian added. "And others we haven't identified yet." Kira's expression remained neutral, but her organic eye widened slightly. "Bold claim. I assume you have proof." As they shared the evidence they'd gathered, Kira's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, correlating data and accessing restricted networks. Hours passed in a blur of information and analysis, the three of them piecing together the extent of the conspiracy. "There's your mastermind," Kira finally announced, projecting an image of Secretary General Marcus Hale. Communications, financial transfers, private security contracts, all leading back to his office. "The Secretary General?" Lyra's voice held disbelief. "He's been the most vocal supporter of the peace treaty." "Publicly," Kira corrected. "Privately, he's been positioning for a controlled conflict. Limited engagement designed to acquire Lyrian technology while appearing to be the reluctant warrior." Darian felt sick. "How do we expose him?" "That's the problem," Kira sighed. "This evidence is compelling but circumstantial, and with his resources, Hale could bury it, and you, before it reaches the right people." Lyra stepped forward. "Unless we force a public confrontation, one he can't control." Her plan was audacious, dangerous to the point of recklessness, but as the three of them refined it over the next hours, Darian had to admit it might be their only chance. Before they departed, Kira pulled him aside. "I ran that check you asked for, on Ambassador Nix's intelligence background." Darian tensed, and she was telling the truth. She left active intelligence work when the peace initiative began. Kira studied his face. "You care for her?" It wasn't a question, but Darian answered anyway. "I do." "Then stop looking for reasons to push her away." Kira's voice softened uncharacteristically. "What happened on Vega wasn't your fault. Not everyone is waiting to betray you." The words hit with unexpected force, cracking the armor he'd built around himself. When they left Kira's safe house, something had shifted between Darian and Lyra again. Not the easy intimacy they'd briefly shared, but a fragile bridge being rebuilt across the chasm of mistrust. "I'm sorry," he said simply as they prepared for the final phase of their plan. "For doubting you." Lyra's fingers brushed his, a tentative connection. "Trust is difficult between our peoples, perhaps even more so for someone who has been betrayed before." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Darian allowed himself to believe that whatever lay between them, this impossible connection across species and worlds, might have a future beyond their current crisis. The Planetary Council convened in Meridian's Grand Assembly, Representatives from a dozen worlds gathered to witness the signing of the historic peace treaty. Secretary General Hale presided with practiced solemnity, his rhetoric about unity and cooperation ringing with hollow sincerity. When the assembly doors burst open to reveal Ambassador Lyra Nix, supposedly missing, a shockwave of murmurs rippled through the gathered dignitaries. "Forgive my dramatic entrance," Lyra announced, her voice carrying through the chamber as she approached the central podium. "But I believe we have the wrong treaty before us today." Chaos erupted as she presented the evidence of tampering, projected for all to see. Darian watched from the shadows, pulse rifle ready, as security forces moved uncertainly between protecting the delegates and responding to Hale's increasingly desperate orders.
"This is outrageous,"
Hale thundered, but the evidence continued to unfold on screens throughout the chamber. Communications, financial transfers, the trail of conspiracy laid bare. When Hale drew a concealed weapon, aiming it at Lyra with shaking hands, Darian moved. The shot was perfect, disarming the Secretary General without killing him, a mercy Darian wasn't certain the man deserved. In the aftermath, as Meridian Security led Hale and his co-conspirators away, Lyra found Darian in the emptying assembly chamber. "The Lyrian High Council has approved the original treaty terms," she said, a smile playing at her lips. "It seems we've saved the peace after all." "We did," Darian agreed, suddenly aware of what that meant. Peace established, her diplomatic mission complete. There was no reason for Lyra to remain on Meridian. As if reading his thoughts, she stepped closer. "My appointment as permanent ambassador has also been approved. It seems I'll be staying in human space for the foreseeable future." Something tight in Darian's chest uncoiled. Meridian can be dangerous for a diplomat. "Then perhaps I still need protection." Her fingers intertwined with his. "From someone who understands the dangers." "I'm not easy to be with," Darian warned, even as he drew her closer. "I have scars." Lyra's free hand traced the line of his jaw, her touch gentle yet insistent. "As do I. Perhaps together we can begin to heal them." When their lips met, it felt like coming home, like finding something neither had believed possible. Human and Lyrian, each damaged by their pasts, each wary of vulnerability, finding in the other a reason to risk their hearts again. "I should warn you," Darian murmured against her purple skin. "I'm still dangerous." Lyra laughed softly, her luminous eyes holding his as the setting sun of Meridian bathed them in golden light. "I told you before, Darian Thorne, I'm already yours." Above them, the stars began to emerge in Meridian's darkening sky. The same stars that had once separated their worlds, now a shared canopy under which two unlikely souls had found each other. Beyond those stars lay an uncertain future, but for the first time in years, Darian looked forward with hope rather than dread. Whatever came next, they would face it together.